Welcome to New Zealand's Deep South. This is one of the most scenic and mountainous regions of the South Island. And for the past 56 years, a small army of elite cycling teams have descended on Invercargill to compete in one of the biggest and toughest events on the New Zealand cycle racing calendar. Over the course of 7 exciting stages, the assembled teams will face everything the roads, terrain and weather of the region can throw at them. At the end of the week, the best cyclists will take home the titles and the jerseys money can't buy. This is the 2013 SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Stage 3 of the 2013 SBS Bank Tour of Southland saw the run of glorious weather and exciting racing continue as the riders tackled the 148-kilometre stage from Riverton to Te Anau. Right from the drop of the flag, the attacks came thick and fast, and it took just a few kilometres for a strong 6-man breakaway to open a gap. The conditions from the coast right through to the scenic alpine destination were perfect for bike racing, and it was Swiss rider Stefan Kung who showed his hand for the first time this tour, taking the climb to Blackmount Hill in style. As the breakaway hit Manapori, Invercargill boy Matt Zenovich from H&J's Outdoor World Avanti Plus and PowerNet's Brad Evans broke away, with Zenovich coming across the line for the stage win and the Southland Times most combative jersey. The yellow jersey was retained by James Oram from Kiwi Velo Armstrong Prestige, and Genesis Wealth Advisors held on to the team's general classification lead.
Coronet Peak is a big climb. Crown Range in the history's only been about 8-minute effort, similar to Bluff. So the time gaps still haven't been too decisive, but this year being 30 minutes plus will really make or break the tour. And ideally we want to keep Joe as close to Oram as possible.
Yeah, no, we're pretty stoked, eh? The tour's going well. We haven't lost anyone and nothing's really gone wrong. So I think that's the one thing you've got to avoid at Southland, really, just stuff up. So
yeah, we've got a couple of climbers on the team, so we'll just try to look after them and just be as conservative as possible in the earlier stages and look to hit up the climb as fast as we can, really.
Stage 4 of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland is another stunner. The stage starts in Te Anau on the edge of the world-renowned Fiordland National Park and heads through some of the best scenery New Zealand has to offer. The ultimate destination is adventure capital Queenstown and a tough climb to the base of Coronet Peak ski area. This is the definitive scenic stage of the tour.
The longest stage in the tour, the Queen stage, 187 kilometres, starting in Te Anau. Then they get a reasonable climb early on over the Gorge Hill, and then probably the most scenic part of the whole race, really, where they go around Lake Wakatipu. And then as they come into the shadow of Coronet Peak, that's when the race will really heat up.
It can be really crosswindy for that first part of the stage. Generally it's a headwind up the lake, although from time to time we've had a tailwind. Then the climbing really starts. 8-kilometre climb to the top of Coronet. This is where the tour will be won or lost.
This stage is like something out of the Tour de France. The organisers haven't tried Coronet since the 80s, and the last time they tried it in the 80s it decimated the field.
This could be a real game breaker for the tour because a good climber can probably, on that half-hour climb up to the Coronet finish, could really take some time out of his rivals on this stage.
Here we are for the Queen stage of this year's tour, over 180 kilometres, and of course the steep finish at the end of the day.
There's be some butterflies in the stomachs of the riders this morning before they started the stage. You can see here the obligatory attacks. There's Grayson Napier, King of the Mountains. Man, this kid's keen. He's on the attack right from the word go out of Te Anau, but there'll be some apprehension here in the group this morning, knowing what's ahead of them.
There's been a lot of riders talking about this particular day here, but Grayson Napier, the 18-year-old, not too concerned by what's going on, as we see one of the South Shore boys now trying to get himself off the frontier in these early attacks to establish a gap on the field, and it looks like already we've got 4 or 5 riders here starting to get themselves away from that main peloton.
Yeah, still early days in this stage, and these riders have got a long way to go, but you can see here attacks starting to peel off. There'll be a few riders backing themselves to try and get a buffer and get into that early group. They'll be hoping if there is a breakaway, Julian, that there's a number of riders in it. If it's a 4 or 5 man effort, I don't know if it's going to stay away. This is one of the longest stages in the Tour of Southland I can remember in recent times, but you can see here things are starting to split up a bit.
Gordon Macaulay there in the mix once again. It's as we always see it from the very start of a stage, and now the rest of the field just sort of sitting up a wee bit, looking around, no one really wanting to shut this down here. So this has potential as they've come back a number of times, and a few others now having a bit of a nudge. And again, we see the King of the Mountains up there, the sprint ace with Tom Scully also. So a couple of the classification leaders trying to get themselves off the front.
Yes, one of the key things that the tour leader, James Oram, will have had a meeting last night about is just being controlled, trying to control the chase, making sure if they have got a break that they are represented. And it is very important, I guess, in the early stages of this thing to keep some cohesion in the peloton going. You can see here we're at the front of the race. This is the front group. There's been a split. This is the false flat just before the Gorge Hill. Quite a tough bit of road this, and some of these riders will be feeling the pinch after yesterday's effort into Te Anau.
And it's certainly been a bit of an effort to get themselves off the front because we're in ideal conditions once again, so they can't use those wind conditions to try and allow themselves to get off the front. And it's the young man again in the polka dot jersey saying cool, calm and collected. The management would have talked to him about it over the nights and that, because there is a number of King of the Mountains points available for this young guy. He won't necessarily be targeting to trying to get to the finish here with the big climb, which is worth 10 points as a Cat 1, but there is a number of points there that he could pick up along the way to extend his lead.
Yeah, Grayson Napier's been one of the finds of this year's race, coming from the Creation Signs L&M group, and they've been in the tour a number of years. This is probably their best tour they've had so far out of the number of years they've been riding, and it's great to see a young guy like Grayson Napier coming along and footing it with the big boys at such a young age.
And of note, he's got Shem Roger, New Zealand representative. He's been around for a few years now. He'll be giving them the advice and keeping him nice and cool and calm there as he approaches the first of the hill climbs of the day, the Gorge Hill climb I should say. It's Paul Odlin of Canterbury who's the man, gives a bit of a nudge, but in the end it's the 18-year-old that's going to secure himself another 3 points across the climb there to continue to extend that lead here. The group will settle themselves back down and they'll get back into a bit of a tempo here as they try and open up further gaps on the field, which is currently sitting at 2.5 minutes.
You can see there Grayson Napier taking his arm warmers off. There's number 25, Tim Rush from Oamaru from the Powernet squad. He's finally come to the front of the race. We haven't seen much from him during the week, but there we are back in the main field. I'd suggest, Julian, that this breakaway is going to go away from here. There's no organised chase at all. The peloton have decided just to shut the gates a wee bit and to see how things progress.
Yeah, that main peloton has done the assessment. They've looked at who's up front there. They know the King of the Mountains. They know why he's away, obviously, to try and pick up points. They've seen Tom Scully, the sprint ace, and he's taken away a couple of other contenders for that, so they know full well why they're out there. They're not too concerned at this point in time. And speaking of sprints, here is Scully once again, as we saw him yesterday, powering to the lead here, and he'll take clearly another sprint here as we make our way through Mosburn. We're having a fantastic tour here with the weather conditions and the racing alike, but let's not forget that there's a number of people behind the scenes here that ensure that the tour continues, with some here for over 30 years.
Cycling is one of those sports that once it's in your blood you just can't get rid of it, and Mum and Dad have started with the junior tour down here, helping us out when we were novices, young riders. And then as we progressed into the senior tour, Dad was quite happy to be a neutral support wagon while we were racing, and it's just gone on from there. I mean, Dad now drives the Chief Com and has been driving Graham Sycamore around for many years.
29 years I've been involved with the tour itself. My role was to arrange vehicles for the personnel and to arrange the personnel themselves. Thanks, Colin. Well done. My wife's been involved also, looking after the medical people.
They have to have a doctor on tour. They have a doctor up the front of the peloton, behind the wheels wagon and the commissaire. And if there's an accident or anything like that, the doctor's first on the scene. He attends to the accident, sees that it's okay or what needs to be done, and then we call the ambulance up.
There's a lot of what you might call very proud people are involved in it and have been for some years, and obviously will continue for more years to come still, yes.
It's one of those things, once the sport's in your blood, it's there forever, and I'm a classic, I'm back involved again now. You just can't stay away, it's great.
So the peloton here, quite relaxed. You can see the yellow jersey with his teammates on the front. This is the way they'll do it here. That's the expectation here. At 4 minutes, the gap now starting to open up.
Yeah, here we are back at the front of the race. There's Tom Scully leading the crew round and onto one of the main roads out of Lumsden, and you can see Grayson Napier having a bit of a tongue up with the guys, giving it a bit of a kick out on that main road from Lumsden and coming up to a hill climb preem, and this lad is just on the attack for these points.
Yeah, further maximum points for the man over the Jollies Hill, and you can see though the peloton quite content just to sit there at a tempo at the moment. Back at the front, Gordon McCauley in the mix with these guys here. Scully lining himself up for yet another sprint as we make our way into Athol here this time round, and he's got a bit of a challenge down the far right hand side by Alex McGregor, who's been away in a couple of these breaks the last few days. Odlin in the middle there, but it'll be Scully who'll secure maximum points. Down through into Kingston here and the lakefront on the left-hand side here. Beautiful sights for these riders, but they haven't got much time to look at this in ideal conditions. Sitting around the 26-degree mark here today is the yellow jersey, still with his team around him and a number of other teams, including Team Polygon. We've got a few riders well up in GC.
Yeah, here we are back at the front of the race, around the Devil's Staircase, or coming up to that. And you can see there is quite a gap. We were back quite a way on the road. This is just the most picturesque scenes here. The camera work on this year's tour has been fantastic. There really is an amazing conditions for these guys to be racing this year's SBS tour.
There's a real mixture of teams now getting towards the front of the field here, allowing some of the other guys just to relax further back in the field. They know what's coming towards them at 4.5 minutes. The time gap hovering about there for this lead group is McGregor from Radio Sport on the far left up the front there. We've also got Ascot represented in there as well with Andy Hagan, who's a name that people are keeping a close eye on here. They'll be quite keen to see what he'll be able to do, but once again, the polka dot jersey has a nudge.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's not often you see in a stage like this that you have the Sprint Ace classification jersey and the King of the Mountains jersey away in the same break. They've really probably targeted this stage, I would think, in order to maximise those points and to try and make the lead as much as they possibly can.
And there we have a fantastic shot of the finish of the day, Coronet Peak, where they'll have 8 kilometres of climbing at the end of a 180k stage.
This will definitely be featuring on the riders' minds. They'll be looking ahead as they go along the whole way. In fact, this whole stage race this year will have centred around this climb, and a lot of the riders will have been waiting for the stage and waiting for that climb to try and stake their claim for the overall GC. And it'll be interesting to know what's going through a lot of the other riders' minds in this peloton as they cruise around this lake and can see that ahead of them.
So making our way down Little's Road now, very steep descent, very quick descent here. The riders going to have to be very careful as they make their way around some of these tight bends.
Yeah, we're very, very close now to the base of the Coronet Peak climb itself. This is a very, very steep descent, as you've said, and there's a very, very sharp wall just as you hit the main road to get onto Coronet. So not only have they got to contend with Coronet, but there is a wee bit of a pinch before the start that's going to snap some of the legs of the riders as well.
We can see here the pressure going on the legs of one of the Ascot Kia Motors boys here as they struggle back up onto the main road before they turn up until the major climb of the day here as he tries to find a bit of rhythm in the body.
Yeah, this is typical here. This is the steep part of the climb. Coronet is a very, very steep start, and you can see here we're back at the front of the peloton, and things have already split up through this first steep component of Coronet Peak. The first K is very, very hard.
Jeremy Venell, number 11, a former yellow leader in the tour in the past here, but he's finding the going too tough today, and he's got Genesis riders up towards the front, Taylor Gunman in there, Joe Cooper being looked after by Gunman here at this present point in time, but up the front we can see the man in the yellow jersey as we pan back to Genesis once again here, trying to get him to a rhythm is Cooper. Of course, he is the national time trial champion. He'll try to do all his best to get himself into that front group again.
Yes, this is going to be a very much a get into a rhythm type climb. You can see the yellow jersey at the front. He's not shirking his responsibilities as the leader of this race. You can see here at the back though, Joe Cooper, one of the fancied riders on GC. He is perhaps yo-yoing a bit, and you can see just in his body's position, he's getting out of his seat, his upper body's moving a bit. I don't think he's very comfortable at this point.
No, and we don't see any of the numbers of the original breakaway group where they joint on with them at the base of the hill here. This is a new group now establishing themselves off the front. This is the big hitters, the guys who feel they can climb the best up this particular hill here. And we've got likes of Mike Torkler now starting to get himself into the mix here as well with Calder Stewart team.
Yes, it's all on the shoulders of the yellow jersey wearer, James Oram. He's got some work to do, and you can see him. He's very, very controlled, very measured. He's not responding to the attacks as they go up the road. This guy is riding a really, really smart race.
We've said it numerous times here, he's a young man, but he's riding with a very mature head here. And here's one of the riders who knows full well what hard climbing's all about. He's ridden the Tour of California. That's Venel. He's finding it very tough out there. That gives you an indication of how hard this is out in front at the moment. And it's Taylor Gudman now, who's left his team leader behind. He's obviously been given the reins, let loose to go for it and have a bit of a nudge here as Ascot team give it a bit of a go off the front with Hagen.
Yes, this is Norris shooting off the front, number 34, the Ascot Park hotel rider. He's really launched a big attack. There's a wee flat piece as they go over that cattle stop, and it really does ramp up just after that cattle stop. And these guys are starting to sniff the end of this race, and you can see now they're really starting to get stuck in.
It's certainly a bit of a mixture here. They'll have some switchbacks coming up for these riders. You can see them well spread out, and it looks like just in the distance there is Sam Lindsay, the Barry Stewart Builders rider here. As he did on Bluff Hill, went off the front very early on in the piece here. He's been trying to hold a lead here of about 20 seconds on this chasing group, but they're starting to shut it down with Mike Torkler.
Yeah, Sam Lindsay's had a huge tour this year. He's raced extensively overseas. He's had a huge year, and this lad, Lindsay, really does know how to ride a climb. We saw it in Bluff, but he just looks like he might have expended a bit much energy a bit soon. It'll be important for him to get back into this group, get on a wheel, take some deep breaths and see what he's got left for the finish.
This is potential switching around of the general classification here as we switch back to the man in yellow. Still riding very relaxed. He's got Taylor Gunman tucked onto him at the moment, not wanting to come through. He knows full well it's the responsibility of the man in yellow, and sitting out there at about 15 seconds. It's not a lot, but it's a very steep incline for these guys here. We could see quite a switch around in this GC.
Yeah, at this stage of the race, it looks like James Oram is really struggling a wee bit. Is he either struggling or is he riding tempo? I think he's very measured, he's very calculated, he's not responded to all the surges as he's gone along, which would be very easy to do in his position. Go with all the attacks and wear yourself out, but he is riding a very, very good race.
The Australian rider Norris giving it a bit of a nudge. Torkler once again, he's a very experienced climber, a very strong rider, ridden the Tour of Wellington, won it in 2010, knows how to climb these sorts of hills here. But I tell you what, it's taking its toll on these guys constantly.
Yeah, we're coming into the final switchbacks of this climb. There's a number of switchbacks before you reach the ski summit and the ski village at the top, and these riders will be wishing this stage is going to end shortly because there's some real hurt going on here at the moment.
Take note of the body language here. Sam Lindsay went off earlier looking very strong indeed, but the shoulders are starting to roll a wee bit, but that's not stopping this man. The top's undone. That's very warm conditions here. He is giving it absolutely everything. He's got the heart rate monitor strapped to the chest there, and I tell you what, that'll be skyrocketing through the roof.
Yeah, this is just an astonishing ride here from all of these riders. This is a super tough climb. This is the sort of thing you see in a lot of the overseas stage races. This is an excellent addition to the SBS Tour of Southland. This is the sort of thing that we want to see, and I would say there's not a stage like this in any bike race in this country.
It's certainly something, as scary as it is, that a lot of the riders have been looking forward to take part, to achieve the challenge of getting themselves to the top of this is going to be absolutely huge on it at the moment. We see the yellow, though, starting to lose a bit more ground on them as these three get themselves together. Norris from Australia sitting on the wheel in third spot there at the moment. Lindsay being left onto the front with Torkler. As we see that switch back further back, the yellow still trying to shut things down.
Key thing with these climbs is actually to keep your opponents within sight, and you can see that James Oram has ridden a very, very heady race. He's not out of contention. He can still see these guys. My bet is that this boy's pacing himself all the way up here and metering it out his energy. He is not attacking and surging like these other riders are, and I have to say I'm impressed with the ride that James Oram's producing up Coronet.
And speaking of impressive rides, look at this man, Sam Lindsay. He's got a second wind and has decided to have another crack off the front here as they make their way now to about 1,500 metres from the finish. Typically on the flat finishes, that would be nothing, but in this time and moments here, it is a real challenge as still there is a bit of a movement coming from Torkler further back, Norris, and we can see a bit of a gap opening on the yellow further back there with Taylor Gunman, who's now gone on to the front of him and is now moving his way forward towards this lead group.
I've got to say, Sam Lindsay is a really courageous rider. The Barry Stewart team, I'm sure Gordon McCauley will have drilled these guys as well. Not that Gordon's of much help to him at the moment, but this is an exceptionally courageous ride here from Sam Lindsay. He has just attacked and attacked and attacked up this climb, and it is testament to this young guy. He's only a young guy, and he is really, really putting in a big effort here.
We've talked often about the changing of the guard with these young guys here, and here's another one who was leading the under-23 in last year's edition, Taylor Gunman of Genesis. He's waited back there with the man in yellow, and he's now starting to shut down the lead on Sam Lindsay.
This is an incredible ride. You've got to realise that Taylor Gunman was back with the yellow jersey wearer, James Oram. He has leapfrogged the other riders, and he is now coming up to the wheel of Sam Lindsay, who was away in the front of the race. This is an exceptional ride here from Taylor Gunman. Man, he has come out of nowhere.
He's had a big season over in Europe. He's just joined this Genesis team going into the 2014 edition. He's been allowed to make the move from after looking after Cooper, his team leader. He goes straight past Lindsay there, who's got no response, and he looks like he thinks he's going to take this win all right, because he's starting to zip it up and get ready here to show the sponsor's name. And the Australian sponsors are going to be over the moon with this effort here. The Queen Stage, 180k. Here's a sneaky look, but he's got the gap here. Taylor Gunman is going to take out the biggest stage here of this SBS Bank Tour of Southlands. Looking further on back here, we can see the gaps all over the place here as our second man, Lindsay, tried desperately to hold on for the win, and the yellow coming across in third place, making some very interesting calculations when we come to the team and individual classification. James Oram continues to lead this Tour of Southland, with Sam Lindsay moving up into second spot at 33 seconds, with Gunman with the stage win at 37. While the Harcourt Sprint Ace continues to be on the shoulders of the Southland rider Tom Scully at 70 points versus Odland's 46. Jesco Hydraulics, Grayson Napier continue to pick up a number of points to continue to lead this right to the very end. While the Henderson Construction under 23 remains on the shoulders of James Oram, 3 minutes back to Tom Vesey of Southland. While the Wensley's team classification sees Hugh Salmon Genesis Wealth Advisors in the lead from H&J's Outdoor World Advantage Plus and Pure South.
It was hard all day. Kiwi Velo had a bit of help from a few teams, but they kept the pace on and it made the easy parts harder, so I was quite nervous of my own legs going into it, but I stayed well fueled all day and it's paid off.
For me it was fairly easy. I got to sit on the boys all the way to the base of Coronet. For the boys though, it's another pretty hard one. They rode selflessly all the way to the bottom, and then it was day over for them. As soon as we hit the base, I took over on the front just to stop any attacks from going. A few did, but I managed to bring them back and hold on to the lead.
Follow the 2013 SBS Bank Tour of Southland all week with full results, live roadside updates, photo and video galleries at tourofsouthland.com.